Hi everyone, I'm Malte. You really humble me. There's a lot of people here on a Friday. It's beautiful weather outside. We're in Los Angeles, we're in California. I was just at New York Toy Fair, but California is home. So I'm really excited to be here and stay in front of you. And I really want to make this valuable for you. So my topic today is bringing sustainability into play. But I want to start with this. I want to give some book recommendations. So if there's nothing you can get out of the entire presentation, those are 3 good books at least you can read. One is The 4-Hour Workweek. Has a catchy title, has a cool cover, sounds awesome, right? Only work 4 hours a week. What it really does, it's a blueprint to automate everything. So I built my entire business on this. And it really helps you to think strategically when it comes to processes. So really outsource everything you can do. The other one is cradle to cradle. Has anyone heard of the cradle to cradle principle here yet? Okay. This is something you as the future toy designers should look more into. This is, in a nutshell, everything that we take from the earth should go back to the earth. So this is something really looking into. And the execution factor, a good friend of mine, Kim Perrell, self-made millionaire. And her really belief is, and I think that's really in entrepreneurship and in design and everything we touch, is execution, right? Ideas, a million a dozen, but a dime a dozen, but execution is really what separates us. This entire presentation I built on 3 pillars. One is a good friend, Nick Mowbray, from the co-founder of Zero, probably not the person who comes to mind when we talk about sustainability, if you're familiar with the Zero brand. But he said something really smart in his YouTube talk or in his TED talk that related with me. So when they started out the company, the toy industry is all about innovation, right? And kind of like coming out with new things. And they did it a little bit too fast. So what they found out is you have to apply the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, even with innovation. Otherwise, you overwhelm your customer. And the same thing for me applies with sustainability. Sustainability is not a destination, but a journey, right? So it's an iteration process where we go one step at a time, and that in the 80-20 rule. When we make an entire toy completely sustainable, whatever that means, because that kind of like shifts from year to year, that's overwhelming the customer. So we want to meet the customer where they are. The second pillar is Emma Watson, famous British actress, and she really brings it down to the point that the consumer holds all the power, right? Right now, we are all in, really worried about what's going on with politics and with elections, not only in this country, literally all around the world. And she really brings it down. Democracy is our consumerism, because we don't vote every 4, 5, 3 years, whatever the election cycle is for that role. We can vote every single day with our shopping receipts. We hold all the power. And the third pillar is yours truly. Sustainability only works at a compatible price point. In my opinion, it's an illusion that people pay more for a sustainable product, but we will go into that later on. So sustainability really works if it's at a compatible price point, and the compatible price point is the exact same price point. But we got a lot of stuff to cover today. I really want to make this really, really valuable for you guys. So let's get to it. I want to start with I think that I'm the right person to talk to you about sustainability today because I'm one of you guys. In the industry, they call it a toypreneur, kind of like a mix between entrepreneur and toypreneur. So I started a brand called Shore Buddies. Anyone heard of Shore Buddies here before? Awesome. We got famous for the first stuffed animal that was ever made 100% from recycled plastic bottles. So we also applied it to the outer skin. If you want to see this guy later, I'm not going to give it around because there's the sound chip in there and everyone presses it and no one is listening to me anymore. But you can touch it later on. We have time after the talk. So I started that. I'm a social entrepreneur. I really do believe, like Emma Watson said, we can improve the world through business. And this is a great alley to do it. I'm also a change maker. I believe everyone, every kid, every family that touches a Shore Buddy has a different opinion on plastic and why this should not land in our oceans, and also talks like this. I really do believe I can read you. You're the future of the toy industry. You're the future toy designers. If I can get you to think a little bit more sustainable, I make an impact. I'm an author. I published a book about self-improvement. I'm a little bit of a psychology nerd, but I'm also currently working on a book about social entrepreneurship. I'm a public speaker. I just recently had the keynote on sustainability at New York Toy Fair. I also host the Sustainable Toy podcast, where I talk all things about sustainability in the toy industry with the movers and shakers that kind of like move towards sustainability. And in my free time, I like all kind of like water activities, soccer, reading, and writing. But I want to play a little game with you guys. So I want to see how your knowledge is around ocean plastic pollution. And we're going to play a little bit Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? But these millions are a little bit unfortunate. So the question is, how much plastic ends up in the ocean every single year? Is it A, 2 million tons, B, 4 million tons, 6 million tons, or D, 8 million tons? Just shout some numbers, or B, D, C. It's a shocking 8 million tons of plastic. And that's not what is already in there. That's what we add every single year. So every single year we add 8 million tons of plastic into the ocean. And how many marine animals do you think that actually affects, that they die by affecting? I mean, is it 500, 100,000, a million, or 10 million? Just shout some numbers or letters. It's 1 million marine animals that die every single year due to plastic in our oceans. If you need a picture for that, that's how they end up. They literally die the most horrible way. It affects the most vulnerable. Those animals, they ingest the plastic with their natural diet, right? They cannot identify a plastic bag underwater from a jellyfish, and they really consume it, they ingest it, and they starve to death with a full belly of plastic, because from those plastics, they don't get any nutrition. In full disclosure, I have to say this is not an actual whale. It's an art installation in the Philippines from 2022, but you get the idea. The problem is ocean plastic pollution, right? We learned 8 billion tons of plastic is getting in there every single year, and it just doesn't really go anywhere, right? Plastic was invented, and it's a phenomenal product, it's a phenomenal material. It was invented 1904, so a little bit of 120 years ago. Best estimates say 500 to 1,000 years it takes to decompose. It means two things. Every piece of plastic we didn't recycle, and every piece of plastic we didn't burn is still out there. And the second thing, we don't even know if those numbers are accurate, right? You see like 500 to 1,000 years. That's a really wide range, and we haven't even reached that. So this is, every piece of plastic is there. We learned over 1 million marine animals die every single year due to ocean plastic pollution. The problem is actually getting worse than better. So we are not on the downhill trend. We are still adding 8 million tons of plastic. And when you come home tonight and your kitchen is flooded, what is the first thing you do? You're not taking out the mop and mopping the water from the floor. You need to check if the water is still running, and that's what we need to do with plastic pollution. And that's where Shore Buddies has come to help. We got famous for the first stuffed animal made 100% from recycled plastic bottles. And the process, it looks a little bit like making cotton candy, I always say, right? You kind of like melt the plastic, you create the pellets, then you spin them around and make those plushies. But what is really important for me, and that's why the water turnoff is so important, it's the educational part. And that's why I'm in the toy industry, to be quite honest. We have such an immense opportunity with toys to talk to kids and really make a difference. So one really interesting psychology effect, actually two really interesting psychology effects we're using with Shore Buddies. every little thing we learn before the age of 7, we'll just learn as a natural habit, right? So it's very, very important what we teach our kids by the age of 7. It's when people say like, it's like riding a bicycle, you will never forget. Because most of us have learned how to ride a bicycle before the age of 7. Why not do that with sustainable and environmental values and environmental habits? The other one is, and I want to hear that from you, when do we learn the best? When we're having fun, exactly. That's why we are in toys, when we're having fun. Our brain cannot just like learning through play is the best way we do. So using toys from an early age on to teach environmental values that last a lifetime, our goal really is to make sustainability a second language through play. My vision for the brand is to become the Finding Nemo that's saving our oceans from plastic, right? So everyone loves Nemo, everyone loves Dory. It's Disney, and what we do, we have to be a little bit crafty because we don't have the Disney millions. So we are re-engineering Disney backwards, right? Disney usually starts with their franchise, with their IP, in this case Nemo, and then they have an animated video around that, and they create like an entire universe. And nowadays you probably can buy every little item you can think of. The other day I was in a mall and they had like diamond earrings with Dory on it. I was like, all right. So literally everything you can have. So we started with a product, but currently we're developing animated videos. We developed a curriculum with San Diego Unified. So really bringing those environmental education into play and working with the kids. Halfway through, this is valuable for you guys. Quick show of hands, this is good? Cool, everyone feels good? Great. Now let's talk about what actually makes a toy sustainable. And before we really get into the details of all of that, this is my credo. No purpose without profit. At the end of the day, someone has to make money. A lot of people have to make money, and especially the toy industry. Hey Mattel! The toy industry is really an industry. It's a money-making machine. And what I said, the third pillar, sustainability only works if we do it at a compatible price point, which is the exact same price point, is so true. But at the same time, every little piece of it, right? Like you're competing with toys that are not sustainable, not just on the consumer face, but the companies as well. A Mattel, a Hasbro, Spin Master, name them all, Jazzwares, they all in the game to make money for the investors, for the shareholders, for the employees. But this is their goal, right? So this is the competition. So if you are not facing this reality, you're dead in the water. So now it's your job as the future toy designers to meet that in the middle. So the challenge is really, as a manufacturer, as a designer, as a brand, to create something that generates money, that you have a business model, because when you have profit, you can drive your purpose. If you don't have any money, if you don't have profit, you don't have any impact, right? And we're talking charity, and there's nothing wrong with that. You can do that, but that's not a business. But if we create something, and it's not just about sustainability, those are the, who's familiar with the United Nations Sustainability Goals? I want every hand to be up, seriously. United Nations 17 sustainability goals, look into that. This is something you can address with toys, right? Not only can we teach environmental values, we can literally improve the world with toys. So we can pick a social issue, a social cause, and if you're not quite sure, everyone talks about nowadays like, oh, I want to have purpose in my life. 17 items to find purpose. Pick one, solve it, create a business model around it. That's what we talk social entrepreneurship. Back to sustainability in toys and why it is actually essential for business success. That was the slide that got most photographed at my talk at New York Toy Fair, because this is how you make money with that, right? Why is this relevant? Because 75% of consumers, our shopping behavior is already changing. I mean, check yourself. Like when you go into a store, is sustainability important for you when you buy a product? Is it something you check? Quick show of hands. Who checks for sustainability? Yeah, not quite 75% here, but yeah, probably just right after lunch, the arms are heavy. But yeah, our buying behavior is really changing. 75% of customers, they're already looking for those products, and this is increasing. Like, sustainability is on the perfect path to become a hygiene factor. What is a hygiene factor, Malte? A hygiene factor, easy example, when do you miss the toilet the most? When you don't have it. That's a hygiene factor. So it only is relevant when it's not there. So I truly believe we will get to sustainability as a hygiene factor, meaning it will go back into the shelf if the product is not sustainable, not the other way around. Right now, sustainability is a USP, it's a pull, but we will go towards that. Second, retailers have quotas for sustainable products. What does that mean? They have goals. They have to identify that 30%, I know that number is from the one with the big bullseye you see in all the malls, 30% of their products on their shelves have to meet ESG criteria, have to be sustainable, and that number is increasing. And the same goes with licenses. At Spielwarenmesse in Nuremberg, the other big toy fair in the industry, actually the biggest one when it comes to visitors, there's 70,000 visitors. And that's an industry trade show, right? It's not a consumer show, it's industry people. So 70,000, it's the entire toy industry of the world is literally meeting in Nuremberg once a year. It's huge, it's massive. I know a few of you were at New York Toy Fair, double that footprint at least. So it's 12 halls, massive. At Nuremberg, they have something called Toys Go Green. It's an exhibition, they do it every single year where they award the most sustainable toys of that year. And there's a video on my LinkedIn, so feel free to check that out. I did a little assessment, a walkthrough through that. And this year, what really stood out to me was the licenses, right? Sustainability is going mainstream. Big licenses like Bluey, SpongeBob, Disney, all of them now have sustainability products at least. I know, but I have that not confirmed. I know that one big license with the dog, British animation, they say they only want sustainable companies applying for the licenses. So all of that is changing. Another big one is organizations. They want to be recognized as the thought leaders, right? They want to create a halo effect. Like, I'm the most sustainable company. This is us. And a couple of companies already going towards that direction. And that can be the toy companies or that can be the customers. For us with Show Buddies, really prominent in ocean resorts. And they really look for sustainable product only, right? You cannot have oh, okay, here's our turtle resort and here is where we sell everything that kind of harms them, right? So everything where you encounter animals, those are usually thought leaders when it comes to sustainability, right? National parks, zoos, aquariums, all of that. And last but not least, no matter the political orientation, right? Right now we're seeing a lot of change on the political scale in this country, but also on a global scale. It's really not that we go back on sustainability. We might see a little dip right now when it comes to renewable energy, when it comes to climate change, all of those discussions. What we will not see is a big increase back in plastic packaging. I think everyone can really agree. We're seeing a lot in toy design on that end. Greenwashing. Anyone heard of greenwashing? Okay. What is greenwashing? Greenwashing is actually two things. The legal part is, and that's very easy, we'll not spend much time on that, is when I say something and it's not true. I say this is made from recycled plastic bottles, turns out it's not, false claim, that's fraud, illegal. The other one, and that's a little bit more of a gray area, is the perception of the customer. And this can be in many different ways. Let's take our big friend over there, Mattel. They have the Barbie collection. Anyone familiar with Barbie? Fun fact, actually I think it was 1995, every single second they sold a Barbie doll. That's reach, that's impact, right? But back to greenwashing, how can Barbie be greenwashed? They came out with an ocean beach Barbie, which was made from ocean-bound plastic, and customers are, that's just greenwashing. Legally, it's not. It actually was made from that, but the perception is different, right? It's like, okay, they only come out with one line, with one Barbie that is that, right? And probably in the whole scheme of things was less than 10% of the Barbie production. So the question is, Mattel, why only one line? This is greenwashing, this is PR from a customer perspective, right? So your goal as toy designers is to not greenwash. It's the storytelling, right? Like literally, what am I doing here? Put it into the DNA of your brand, put it into the DNA of your product. There are certain regulations that are covering them. I have to say the EU is a little bit more, and I'm not a big fan of regulations, to be honest. I think regulations are always 10 years behind the status quo, right? Like reality is, where we're at right now, regulations is 10 years ago, and the possibility with technology is 10 years in the future. So this is where reality is where we're at right now. Anyways, regulations, green claims, that's exactly in the EU that is covering greenwashing, right? You cannot just go on there and put on like eco-friendly or more eco-friendly than Hasbro. I just keep picking Mattel, right? So like they're just like close. You have to back it up. You have to really say what is eco-friendly about it, or why are you more eco-friendly than the other one, right? So this is in the EU regulation. Another one is the Supply Chain Act, right? Where you really have to, you are responsible as a manufacturer, in certain cases even as the retailer, for all aspects of your supply chain. I don't know how well you guys or how deep you are in the logistics of the toy industry, but it's a lot of times no one owns the supply chain, right? It's all like third-party hire. It's like there's a designer hired, there's a manufacturer hired, there's a factory hired, there's a supplier hired, right? So it's like many, many different moving parts, and being responsible to oversee that is something really difficult. I don't think this law will stay in place. Germany just had a re-election, and the leading party right now, I don't think they will keep that up, which I think is good, because if it's only one country, it makes it really hard to compete on a global scale. Another one, and they announced that last year, and this is, in my opinion, a typical European Union issue. They come out with regulations and have no idea what to do with it, actually. Perfect example is AI. The EU just recently really celebrates themselves like, we are the first market that has ethical AI. However, a European AI project is still to be seen, right? So like all the AI projects, they are not from the EU. But back to the eco-design requirements, this one goes really towards the lifespan of a toy, right? Or for any product. But as a toy, and this is something why I recommended the cradle to cradle, if there's one thing you should think about when designing a toy, which will make you stand out in the future, is what happens to the toy afterwards. And this is exactly what this is addressing. Circularity, what happens after the end of life. A little fun regulation, what happened, who here works in plush? In plush, there were always those three interesting states that had a regulation. When you take a stuffed animal, any plush, and you look on the label, it often says all new material. And that's because of these three states. So the stuffing had to be all new material. It doesn't even come from the toy industry, come actually from mattresses, because they literally stuffed stuff in there. That was not really quite new material. So in the 1800 something, they came up with the law. Pennsylvania actually was leading on that. The other two are like adapting. And now this year, and this is the difference for me between the EU and the US. The EU is like, let's regulate. And the US is like, okay, let's open up the market possibility for sustainable products. So now those three states have changed that also you can use recycled material. We couldn't sell our beloved Shelly from recycled plastic bottles in these 3 states until last year. Business entities, certificates, we will go into that in a little bit further detail here in a second. Toy safety. In the 50s, there were no regulations on toy safety. Unbelievable, right? But like all of those kind of things, when we're talking about a hygiene factor and sustainability, this is something where we see the sustainable toy industry move towards. This is probably the most important slide, so take pictures of that. What actually makes a toy sustainable, right? It's like the materials, like for me, the product itself, it has to be sustainable, and there are different ways, right? Like it depends, is it the plush, it's a hard plastic toy, is it a paper toy, is it a digital toy, right? So like there's so many different ways and things to go. Materials is just one part. The other one is the packaging, right? How is the toy presented? In terms of e-commerce on the rise, pretty much like dominant for many products at this point, but shelf presentation and packaging is definitely an element what makes a product itself sustainable. And then others, we saw some regulations, origin, and that again is a lot of times really perceived, right? Sustainability is not something that is like defined by anyone. Sustainability often is something what the customer understands, right? What they think sustainable is. And when you tell people, oh, it's made in China, a lot of people, how can that even be sustainable? Reality is, when we started with this, there was no other country who had the technology. Whoever still underestimates China, what they can do with product, with design and engineering, wake up. Longevity, a lot of times it's just like, yeah, our product is sustainable because it lasts forever. How long does plastic take to decompose or to think about going anywhere? 500 years. No one plays 500 years with one toy, right? So longevity, in my opinion, is not the answer. It's great, it's not gonna break when you take it out of the cardboard packaging, but this is something that's definitely not an element. Circular economy, meaning everything cradle to cradle comes back. Educational elements, right? We have a story in here, we teach, we use the toy as an impact. So those are all sustainable elements that you can use in this one. When you tell the branding, you tell the story. This is, from my point of view, the most important slide, because this is really where you can differentiate yourself on a product, but not even more on a brand side, right? The ones in bold are the ones I really want to focus on. Eco-friendly materials, we just covered that. That's a given. If you try to bring out a sustainable product, a sustainable toy, even if it's educational, if it's teaching, if it is not made sustainable, it's not a sustainable toy. This is the number one criteria. The other one is the storytelling, right? How do you present that? And if a product is really focused on sustainable, if a toy is really focused on sustainable, but you don't advertise it, then it's not, right? It's the story you tell. And this is very, very important. A lot of times I talk to people in the toy industry, it's like, yeah, but our product is sustainable. It's like, where does it say? And it's like a tiny little dot on here that says like made with recycled materials. It's like, no, need it big. This is your USP right now. Tell the story. A very famous American philosopher of today says, people don't buy what you do, they buy from you why you're doing it. So get them involved. Tell your story. Why are you doing that? Next one, play value. That's the first one. Well, material is the first one if you have a sustainable toy, but this is play value. Think about, you want to solve a problem. You don't want to create a product. You want to solve a problem. No one needs a sustainable toy if no one plays with it. There's no use. You're actually adding to the pollution. You're not solving anything. So, can I say that? A toy needs to be kick-ass. It really needs to be cool. You need to have a cool play value. You have to have something that is fun to play with. If not, no one buys it from you anyways, right? So like, just because it's sustainable, because in the toy industry, you really have this fun phenomenon. Your buyer and your customer are usually not the same person, right? This one, we're making for kids under 7 years old. Those are not the ones running with a $20 bill through Target. No, you have to understand who your buyer is. But the kid wants this because it has cool play value. It tells a story, it has all of that. Community engagement. This is where you can separate yourself from the masses, right? Like, how do you really get the community involved? Also, Simon Sinek says, I lost my train of thought. Where was I going with this? Community engagement is really how you get there. Yes, you don't want customers, you want raging fans, right? You want fans of your brands. They really want to be with you. So community engagement, in our cases, the nonprofit organizations we work together with that help us to get this mission really in front of the kids, right? So like we partner with nonprofit organizations that have the educational value that talk about that. And that's the consumer education really comes in with that, right? Use those kind of like elements. You have a toy, you have an opportunity to tell a story, to have an impact. Circularity, my recommendation that every one of you should really look into that. And the low-hanging fruits is what is happening to a toy at the end of life. A couple of sustainable toy brands, examples. Who knows all of them on here? Who knows 3 of them on here? Okay. Shore Buddies, we have this here. Green Toys, absolute pioneer, made in the US. They started as one of the first ones with recycled plastic. Hard toys, they make little play sets. Plant toys from Thailand, my absolute favorite because they're so sustainable, like through and through. They're really like a social impact business, and they found and created a business model around it. Everything is there. HP, famous German brand, the material they use is sustainable, and they also use the toys as an educational vehicle. Tigu and BioBody, also really good companies that are focusing more on the sustainable material side. Top 7 sustainable materials. We started a little late, so I'm just gonna rush through that. You can probably get the presentation from me later on. I'll share them with the administration. Bioplastics, recycled plastics, biocomposites, that's something you add to it, right, to make a toy last longer for more durability. Biodegradable materials, something that kind of like biodegrades, really goes back to the earth. Hemp comes to mind, those kind of products. Natural rubber, right, silicone toys that are made from natural rubber. Organic cotton, I think, is really on the rise. We are actually thinking about our next iteration, getting away from the recycled PET towards organic cotton. One of my mentors, he always says, well, California is kind of like 10 years in the future, and I don't live in California anymore for the last 2 years, and now every time I come back, it's like, yeah, it really is. It really is. And here, while everyone is still talking about, ooh, ocean plastic, this is becoming a problem. Ooh, microplastic. In California, what they're talking about now? Nanoplastics. Plastics so tiny that you can literally sniff them and they go straight to your brain, like the things you sniff. Last but not least, wood and bamboo. Kind of obvious, but you see here, they're also, all of them come with cons as well, right? Everything is a compromise. So if you build wooden toys only, you need to kind of like build the forest to do that. And bamboo grows fast, regular wood takes a lot of time to do that. Cradle to cradle, this is really the concept, right? You like have something, you produce it, you use it, and it goes back to the cycle and reproduce it. When this is shown, I always want to point out, you don't have to do all of those steps by yourself, right? This is literally where collaboration comes into place. We human beings literally work the best when we collaborate with each other. Like, not one person has to solve all the world's problem by themselves. I mean, Greta Thunberg thinks she does, but it's really collaboration. It's really collaboration. So if you think about cradle to cradle, find which part of that chain you can take care of and find the other partners. No purpose without profit. I just have to point it out again. All those sustainability things is really not working. No money, no impact, as hard as it sounds. All right, we're almost there. 7th inning stretch. Turn around, look at your left neighbor, look at your right neighbor. All right. But so far, good? 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 Cool. We have time for some questions at the end. But I want to also, now this is kind of like my advertisement, I want to really advertise entrepreneurship amongst you. I hope some of you will become entrepreneurs or consider working in a startup. Not everyone is an entrepreneur. Not everyone feels that pull, but I think entrepreneurs are really the change makers, and they really are going forward and living their dream. And I want to do some advertising to be an entrepreneur and maybe inspire one to become one. And as an entrepreneur myself, I'm always excited about the founder story because a lot of times he's kind of cool. So here's mine. I'm originally from Germany, as you have figured with the accent by now. And in Germany, we are really militant when it comes to recycling, right? So like we rinse the yogurt cup and do everything, and it has to be like separated into 5 or 8 different bins, you know, like the trash, and really take care of the environment. Once I got a little bit older, right, like 16 years old or something like that, you're kind of like, okay, what's behind that curtain? And you look there, and then you realize 80% of the recycled plastic that goes into that stream, it's actually getting burned. So where's the cycle, right? So like in Germany, they use the plastic really for creating energy. And the rest of it at that time was shipped to China. Well, they actually were able to make new product out of it. But for me, that was kind of like, okay, this whole recycling is kind of a hoax. Like, this is not really what I've been told, right? Talking about transparency. Storytelling worked, but it was not really quite there. So greenwashing, storytelling, all of that was there. When I came to San Diego in 2011, I thought, okay, cool. Now you're going to California, right? California. This is literally the forefront of the green revolution. Everyone here is like all about recycling, all about the environment. Everyone hugs a tree in the morning, you know, California. Wasn't quite the case, right? Everything was single-use plastic. Like you go to the store and everything is single-use plastic. And people were really not quite aware of how important it actually is to take care of the environment, but everyone is an activist. In California, everyone, who is here has been to a beach cleanup? Okay, I highly recommend it if you haven't done it yet. This is something that will shock you, that will scar you, and will make you rethink your consumer behavior. I mean, all of us can walk around the beach and like pick up 3, 4, 5 items, which is good. But really what happens at those beach cleanups when there are like 100 people and you pull literally a couple thousand pounds from the beach. Like it's literally, you not really have to look far. It's there and it gives a really great sense of community, talking about community engagement. Again, I'm a big believer we need to start earlier, right? We need to turn off the tap, but a beach cleanup is really good to address that. So back to California. So I see these guys doing the beach cleanup and I was like, what are they doing? They're like, this is interesting, right? In Germany, there wasn't, now they have actually, but back then they didn't have that. That was 2011, by the way. They didn't have that. I guess when you pay 50% of your money for taxes, you expect the government to take care of everything. But here, everyone is an activist, right? So everyone wanted to do something, and it was quite shocking to see that this was the only option until I came across these guys. Anyone heard of Patagonia? Oh, the brands, everyone knows the brands. That's awesome. Patagonia, he created phenomenal things, not just the company itself, or the product itself, but what really made me interested in that, I read an article how they were making the t-shirts and jackets all from recycled plastic bottles, and they're doing that since the 90s. And I found that so inspiring. I find that this is phenomenal, right? This is literally the recycling loop. It works. You actually can make products out of this. And I was reading the article in San Diego in my apartment in Pacific Beach, and was reading it on my laptop, and like entrepreneurial spirit kicks in, right? So like I was looking for pen and paper to like write down what other products you can make from that. And the first thing I saw was a stuffed animal. a stuffed seagull that was dangling from the ceiling. Like I brought it with me from Germany. I was like, if you can make a t-shirt or a jacket, you can make a stuffed animal, right? Like all of them, like polyester is plastic. Plastic is oil. So instead of using new plastic to create more polyester, you can use recycled plastic. And sure, OTIS was born. Everyone told us we can't, so we did it. But entrepreneurship, for me, this is the advertisement theme again, for me is really, you can make a difference, right? You can pick a passion and can make a business out of it. And it's the last refuge where you can rebel. You literally can put your thought how the world should be out there and make it a reality. Everything else, in my opinion, is very, very hard and difficult to change society. So if you're unhappy with how society is currently, I encourage you to do entrepreneurship. That's the reason I did it. Entrepreneurship is the last refuge of the trouble-making individual. Talent doesn't know location. Also very important knowledge to have, because $10 in LA is very different than $10 in Bangladesh, right? Here in California, $1,000 a month doesn't really change someone's lifestyle. $1,000 in Bangladesh, that's a family going to college. That's generational wealth, right? So not only meaning you are competing when you're graduating with people from all around the world. That's reality now. Everyone has access to all the tools. I mean, at OTIS you have really phenomenal learning opportunities, but everyone is looking at that and competing on a global scale now. So you are competing now with people who are A, not only willing to work for less, but B, have a very different motivation to earn $1,000, because for them, it literally means coming out of the slums. So this is your competition, not just only the neighbors, all of you are graduating with together, you are competing with a global world. In the world of the University of YouTube, everything is possible. Execution over perfection, I probably said that already 5 times today, so I'm gonna say a 6th time, execution over perfection. If you're not embarrassed by the first version of your product, you've launched too late. That's really true for entrepreneurship, right? So it's an iterational process. This did not look like this when we first launched. There's a lot of different steps, and I probably can tell you 3 different things. I already want to change on that in the next production run. Actually, this is, I think, 2 production runs ago. But it always is there, right? It's kind of like Buddhism. Like if you see something good, copy it and make it a little bit better. So this is how you should think about your product launches. Get work experience in college. You guys all in college. Get internships. This is the reality. Get internships, get the knowledge. For 2 reasons. A, your network is your net worth. Relationships only hurt the people who don't have them. So start fostering, start building them early on. And if you're not doing internships while you are still in college, after graduation, you're not gonna apply for a job. You're gonna apply for an internship. Work experience, real life work experience is key and is everything. And Warren Buffett said it best, fun fact, Warren Buffett actually, Berkshire Hathaway, they own Jazzwares, one of the big 5 companies. By far the best investment you can make is the one in yourself. Learn to sell, that's definitely a skill to have, right? And not thinking about learn to sell anything, you really selling yourself every single day, right? The way you present yourself, the way you wanna win an argument, you wanna convince someone, right? You wanna educate someone. That's the selling of the 21st century. Sales is not about selling anymore, but about building trust and education. Become the expert. This is really, really highly recommended. Pick a niche and go for that, right? I mean, there's a reason why your Dean Jennifer thought I should be here standing, because this is the guy who talked in front of the entire global toy industry at New York Toy Fair. So thanks to her, you get me today. Become the expert. Not all readers are leaders, but all leaders are readers, right? Read, educate yourself, really become the expert. Pick one niche and really go for it. Foster your network. I already said that. relationships only hurt the people who don't have them. Start building relationships, start building out your network early on. Technology is nothing. What's important is the people. They are basically good and smart. At the end of the day, doesn't matter if it's AI or anything like that, at the end of the day, people want to do business with people. Always comes down to that. A lot of deals are not made in the room, they're made on the golf courses. But back to how do we change all of this around, right? So now we learned about sustainability, how to do that, building companies, back to who wants to be a millionaire. The question now is, who should lead the change? Is it A, the nonprofit organizations, the businesses, the government, or the people? What do you guys think? D, B, A, C? Probably, exactly. Probably the answer is a little bit of all of them, ideally. But back to my 3 pillars and what Emma Watson said, right? For me, it's this, the businesses and the people. The people hold all the power. We don't vote only every 4 years. We vote every single day with our shopping receipts. We hold all the power. Every dollar you spend is a vote. And the businesses are the ones who have to comply. Like if they are not giving what the customer wants, they're going to be out of business pretty soon. So you hold them accountable with your spendings. If they don't give you what you ask for, they will be out of business. Easiest form of democracy. This is how such a responsible business can look like. It really has all the touching points. With Sure Buddies, we are so-called California Social Purpose Corporation. What does it allow us to do is that we cannot be held accountable by our shareholders only for profit optimization. We have the typical triple bottom line. Yes, profit optimization because no profit, no purpose. But we make sure that we only use sustainable materials, whatever that is at that time and age, so that iterates, and all our products have to be educational. And then we take care of all of them, right? This is a stakeholder approach. So all the moving parts, your customers, your communities, your suppliers, environment, big one, employees, and your shareholders, you'll take care of. And if you think this is unrealistic to do business, let me introduce you to the profit paradox. Good friend of mine, Dr. Gustavo, he developed that. And what you can see here, those orange bars, those are the social capitalism companies, right? The social enterprises. And what for me is the most fascinating is, those numbers are a little outdated, but it goes to 2008, our last big recession. Here you already have them perform better than your standard S&P 500, NASDAQ, all of them. But you see them recover way, way faster than the competition. So the profit paradox, social enterprises thrive. Last question for the day. And I just came across when I put the slides together. Who said it actually? Be the change you want to see in the world. Was it Mother Teresa, JFK, Mahatma Gandhi, or Dr. King? What do you guys think? Gandhi, it was Gandhi. You must be the change you want to see in the world, right? And be part of the solution. Tell me and I forget, teach me and I remember, involve me and I learn. I know this was only like an hour, but I hope I could involve you a little bit. And this is something I really am passionate about, right? So learn about the problem, understand your impact in both ways. You are as responsible for the things that you don't do as you are responsible for the things that you do. So understand your impact, spread the word, be the change. Those are my 4 business principles. You can scan the QR code, you can download the PDF, but be the first and last believer. It's up to you, right? If you decide to become the entrepreneur route or toy designer route, you have to be the first and last believer. Develop the resilience muscle. It's really, really important. A lot of people will tell you you can't, so prove them you can. Don't reinvent the wheel on the way. Don't do stuff that already exists. Don't waste energy. Use the resources you have. Always fail forward. Perfection is an illusion. You always fail forward. It doesn't matter. I'm teaching that my nephews right now ice skating. It doesn't matter how many times you fall. Only thing that matters is how many times you get up And tomorrow is the land of results. The effort you put in today is literally what will get you food tomorrow. With that, I want to thank you very much. I hope this was fun, entertaining, and interesting for you. And I'm from San Diego, so I end with Dr. Seuss. You have brains in your head, you have feet in your shoes, you can steer yourself in any direction you choose. You're on your own, and you know what you know, and you are the one who will decide where to go. Thank you very much. Questions, anyone? We have time for 3 questions. If not, everyone goes to lunch. Don't be shy. Yes?
So you mentioned wanting to try out organic cotton. Do you have any other aspirations for the company or plans moving forward to expand?
Yes, so I see that besides plush, right? Kind of like the Finding Nemo, the diamond earrings. So I really want to turn this into a franchise that you see Shore Bodies as a household name. The reason we haven't done it yet, 2 things. A, cash. Second is that all the products have to be sustainable, right? So like our credo is really we don't want to add something that just is there as a product. It should create an educational value and has to be made from sustainable materials. Thanks. Yes?
What was the process of finding a factory that could produce like recyclable plush? What was that like? Just you were kind of.
Yes, that was a great question. So we were the first one doing it, right? And now, like nowadays, honestly, it's easy to find recycled PET plush manufacturer. For us, it was literally me, right? Be the first and last believer. Going to a factory, tell them they make t-shirts, they make jackets, make a plush toy out of it. It's like, but no one does that. It's expensive, and it's really what you have to do, right? This is why I also think, like I'm bringing it all together now, the 4-hour work week is really important. As a small company, you can eat up your margins by optimizing your processes, right? So we were really bootstrapped with very limited overhead and very small margins to introduce a sustainable toy at a low price point. Reality was, in production, we were probably, when we started out, 2 times higher than your typical plush, but we made adjustments in the entire supply chain and cut a little bit out of the margins by cutting out middlemen and stuff like that. So with a business model that we could introduce a same cost process. Yeah, but it was really convincing and finding the right partners to give it a try. One more question? Max.
What's like the biggest challenge you've had through like the whole thing?
The biggest challenge is distribution. The biggest challenge is distribution because the toy industry is a distribution game. It's really tough to spend the money and getting your products in the hand of people because it's marketing, it's sales, and that's where literally it's when Mattel calls is like, all right, everyone who sells toy, come to El Segundo and we'll show you all the newest things, right? So like this is literally, I think it was in the spring, in the fall previews, they were here for one night at OTIS as well. The entire toy industry meet at those fairs, at those trade shows, right? So like, and finding the right partners that help you with distribution. Cool, thank you very much.